Under the category of the fun stuff, we're going to talk a little bit about some open chords and some of the shapes that I like to start students out with in the beginning that I've found through experience they can get their fingers around and get some sound out of. My favorite, the first one that I always start people with, that I always show people, is the E minor chord. Okay? Now, an E minor chord is basically using the middle two fingers. Okay? So we're not going to use our index or our pinky. We're going to use the middle two fingers. Okay? And we stack those two fingers up on the second fret on the fourth and the fifth strings. Okay? So if you're familiar with chord diagrams, you can look these up. But the E minor is a nice place to start, and if you can find a diagram of an E minor, then you can sort of see how the diagram works. And we'll talk about that again in a separate session. But basically, by taking the second and the third fingers and putting them, the second finger extends to the fifth string, the third finger goes underneath on the fourth string, excuse me, and we basically drag the pick across all six strings. Okay? And a gliding motion, if you will, a skimming motion, very light with the right hand. And with the left hand, we really need those fingers on their tips, okay? And we don't want to interfere in any way with the palm of the hand or anything on the guitar here, okay? So that would be the first one that I would recommend getting under your fingers. Now, if I was to take that E minor shape and I was to move it one string towards the floor, okay? Now, if you've watched some of my earlier discussions, this is a little strange. We're moving what we refer to as up one string because we're moving to higher strings, but it is one string towards the floor, is the way I like to describe it. So we move that string and then we add the first finger, the index finger, we add to the first fret on the second string, okay? So again, that pair of fingers moves one string towards the floor, first finger on the second string, okay? Make sure the fingers are curled up and on their tips. And with the pick, the right hand, we're only going to play 5 strings, okay? So we eliminate the thickest. We eliminate the 6th string from this chord, and we're basically strumming 5 strings, okay? Now, you can take these two chords alone and just sit and put your E minor in place. Give it 1, 2, 3, 4, shift A minor, 2, 3, 4, shift it back to E minor, 2, 3, 4 to the A minor, 2, 3, 4, and write some lyrics, write some words, and you've got a song. The next logical step, or the next step that I like to take from there, is to take that A minor shape, okay? So if we sort of walk through things again, we've got the E minor, which is the 3 and the 2 there. We take those two fingers over the string, add the first finger, that's our A minor. Now, if we can take our ring finger, okay, our third finger, and keep the other two fingers where they are, okay? In other words, the first and second fingers aren't going to move. This third finger is going to reach out to the third fret on the fifth string. Now, with a C chord, and this comes up a lot in chord fingerings, in the beginning, what happens is a lot of people have a tendency to block certain strings, okay? And the culprit is usually the pad of the finger that is playing the string, touching the string beside it, or physically, I guess, below it, okay? So for instance, my second finger is on the fourth string there, and the tab, or the pad of my finger, is blocking that third string, okay? So when we attempt something like a C chord, the way I like to think of it, and the way I talk to my students about it, is hanging your fingers from the strings, okay? In other words, coming way around on top of the string. And what that does is it gives you the clearance that you need, okay? And the fingertip is really brought around, okay, so that we don't get that interference with the other strings, okay? The C chord is a challenge. A challenge happens to start with C, and C is a decent challenge. I think that's part of the secret, is really coming around there, and the thumb is behind the neck. The other issue is what I call the tunnels. So when my first finger is playing the second string, in many cases, this part of my hand, the flat part of my hand, might be touching the first string, okay? And that'll block that string, okay? So I need those fingers curled way around on top, and I need the tunnel clear underneath so that first string's going to ring for me, okay? And so to walk back again, if we start back on the E minor, okay, which is just those middle two fingers on the 4th and the 5th strings. Take that and move it one string, add the index. Take that 3rd finger, stretch it out to the 5th string. The C chord is also a 5-string chord, okay? So we've got 3. We've got E minor, we've got A minor, we've got C, okay? Seeing as we're on a bit of a roll, for those of you who are enthusiastic and are up for a challenge, let's talk a little bit about the G chord, okay? With my students, I call this grr, because this involves a little more stretching as far as the wrist is concerned. There are a number of different ways to play a G chord, and in the beginning, I think the easiest or the best way to approach the G chord is to start with the 3rd finger on the 1st string. Okay, it's on our G note, actually. If we're talking about E, F, and G single notes, the 3rd finger goes on that G note. The 2nd finger is required to stretch to the opposite side of the neck. So that means that the 2nd finger has to extend to the 6th string, and it's the 3rd fret as well. So this 3rd and 2nd fingers, maybe from that way, the 2nd and 3rd fingers are required to split the strings, and the 1st finger will go on the 5th string, okay? At the 2nd fret, okay? So basically, you've got the 3rd finger on the 1st, the 2nd finger, the middle finger all the way across, okay, and the 1st finger on the 5th string. So we've got E minor working for us, hopefully. We've got our A minor working for us. We've got our C chord, which is that one that we got to get way over top. And we've got our G, or grr, okay? And with those 4 chords, you would be absolutely amazed. I'd venture to say thousands of songs. The right hand is another issue. I think in the beginning, it's really, you know, paying attention to the number of strings, okay? So E minor is all 6, A minor is 5, C is 5, and I think I neglected to mention the G is back to all 6. Okay. We will deal with some 4-string chords as we go forward. We'll deal with some D chords and some F chords, everybody's favorite. But with the right hand, just strumming down in a nice, soft, steady fashion will give you something that's quite nice. Okay? And you can mix these up in order as well. So you can start in a number of different, you know, chords, if you will, and start on G there. In the beginning, there's my C and E minor, okay? In the beginning, I would recommend doing them in the order I presented them. So do the E minor first, the A minor, go for that C, and switch over to the G. But as you practice and get more comfortable, then you can start to mix things up, okay? So go have some fun with those chords, and thanks for watching.